Now, as you know, there are a lot of really important questions being asked in the world today. And amongst the top questions that people are asking, especially according to Google and YouTube searches, do I buy a Hero 8 or do I fork out a bit more and get a Hero 9? This is a really important question. A lot of people want to know the answer. So stick around and we'll talk about it. Hey there, how's it going? Great to see you again. Now before I get started on the GoPros, just a quick reminder, click on all of these buttons and stuff down below here, and if you've got any questions or comments, leave them in the comment section below. I do read them all and I get back to as many of them as I can. Okay, let's have a look at these. The Hero 8 and the Hero 9. Which one are you going to get? Well, let's have a look at some of the similarities and things that haven't changed, things that have changed, and maybe that'll help you decide. The first thing, of course, and the one that a lot of people start talking about, is the size of it. As you can see, the Hero 9 is substantially bigger. Well, okay, if I even them out, it's a little bit bigger. It's a wee bit taller, and it's quite a bit fatter. It's quite a bit wider, and yeah, tall, and just in all dimensions, it's generally bigger. But that's okay because it does quite a bit more inside here for all of that. The weight as well, which is important for people who are dangling it off a stick out the front of a helmet or something like that, is a reasonably good thing to take into consideration, I guess. It weighs about half again what this one does. The exact weights I don't know, you can look that up. It's in the brochures, but don't forget that this one here is also half again the weight of the 7. So, and also bigger than the 7. So making it slightly larger and slightly heavier and that sort of thing. It's not a new thing for GoPro, even though it does seem to come up every time. One other thing that is noticeably different in size between the GoPros is the battery as well. Because here's the battery for the GoPro 8 and here's the battery for the GoPro 9. As you can see, it's taller, it's fatter, it's wider, and it's longer. Tall, fat, wide, long. Tall, fat, that's 4 dimensions. It's only 3 dimensions on. What the hell am I talking about? But anyway, it's twice the volume. So inside the GoPro 9 battery, you've got twice the cell count as inside here. So it's storing twice as much power, roughly, I believe. That means it can run a bit longer and do more things and not go flat on you as quick. You can get extra batteries, you can get extra chargers, but obviously they're not interchangeable this time round, and also you need a new charger for them if you're going to do that. I think it's a slightly longer charging time, but then you've got a lot more charge in there to use later on. Okay, let's have a look at the next thing on here. That's the sensor in here. So that's one of the key differences. This camera, the GoPro 8, will shoot at 60 frames at 4K. It's the highest resolution and frame rate. This one here will shoot 5K, but only at 30 or 24 frames per second at the moment. There was hints of a firmware update coming that might make that a higher frame rate, depending on whether they can tune the software without overheating and stuff like that, I guess. But yeah, you can shoot 5K footage out of that, and that gives you some advantages in other areas as well. They'll both shoot 4K at 60 frames, and they'll both shoot HD at, that's 1080p at 240 frames. So you can get the same really good slow-mo out of both of them. The GoPro 8 will go down to 720p. The GoPro 9 bottoms out at 1080p. So once again, you can have a look at all the specific frame rates and sizes on charts on the GoPro website, but there's a good indicator for you. You do get a bit more bang for your buck out of the 9 in that regard. The sensor in here being larger is also really good for the stabilization stuff. Now in the GoPro 8 we've got Hypersmooth 2 and Time Warp 2, and they work by slightly enlarging your image a little bit so that they can do some rotation and bits and pieces like that to smooth your footage out. Because this has got the larger sensor in it and can shoot 5K, and it can actually shoot higher resolution than 5K for photos, but I'll get to that soon, it means it doesn't have to do as much scaling and translation to do the balancing. And that brings us to the digital lenses as well. So it's got Hyper Smooth 3 and Time Warp 3 because of that. So that's a version up. It uses a slightly different algorithm because it's got more data to play with, and it doesn't have to do the scaling as well as the rotation and things. The GoPro 8 will shoot still photos at 12 megapixel. The GoPro 9 will shoot still photos at 20 megapixels. As you can see, that's where all of that difference in the smoothing and that sort of thing comes in as well. It's got all those extra pixels to blow up or move around without actually scaling the image itself. So it doesn't need to crop to do your hyper smooth. And for taking photos, that's just a hell of a lot more data, so it doesn't have to do so much the artificial sharpening or anything like that as well to get out of here. The lenses, the digital lenses in here still shoot the super view, the wide view, narrow and linear, or linear or narrow, whichever way around you want to do that. And this one also shoots super view, wide view, linear and narrow, but it also does linear with horizon leveling. Now that means that if you put the camera down on the beach and you're shooting yourself out there surfing and it's slightly skewed left or right or something and it's not flat, instead of getting home and going, oh man, my image is all, the horizon goes up across the screen like that, it's actually going to flatten it out for you and do that rotation. And it can do that because it's got that larger sensor and all those extra pixels to rotate on without doing scaling, so you don't have to do it yourself later. That's a really cool feature actually. Live burst is still the same in both of them, so that you can push the shutter button when you're taking a photo, and it takes a whole burst of photos from 1.5 seconds before you start to 1.5 seconds after you push the button. That way if you're shooting an action shot, say a bird flying off or somebody jumping a skateboard over a ramp or a frog jumping, anything like that, you can get that frame exactly where you want it to, or at least as close as you can, and you're not worried about the lag between you going, oh, push the button, and the shutter clicking. It's going to capture all of that stuff leading up to it and beforehand and let you do that. The GoPro 9's added something else into here though. It's called hindsight, and that means that you can push the record button and it will already have recorded and cached 15 or 30 seconds of video that it will start recording and saving from before you push the button. So you're never going to miss that little bit where somebody's leading into something, or you push the button just a little bit too late and missed some action and you just get the tail end of a jump of a bicycle over a big ramp or something like that. That's going to save your butt and make sure that you've got that extra 15 or 30 seconds, you can set that in the camera, of the footage that you would otherwise have missed. An important note though, it will only record what you're pointing the camera at, so if your camera's facing down here and you go, oh I want to get that, and then you push record and lift it up, it's still going to be recording 30 seconds of what's below you. ProTune is the same in both of them, so your white balance, color science and ISO settings are going to look the same across both of them. That's largely because they're both using the same GP1 processor that the Hero 8 came out with. It's a great processor. They've upgraded things in the way they use it more than upgrading the processor itself with a whole pile of new bugs. They've optimized how they use it, so that's really cool. It's a good solid piece of processing hardware, and you're not going to be disappointed with that. I talked about frame rates before. Slow motion is still the same in both of them. You'll get 240 frames a second. That means that if your final footage is 24 frames a second, you can slow it down to 1/10 of the speed. 30 frames a second is roughly 1/8 of the speed. If you've got really good editing software like Final Cut or Resolve, you can interpolate frames and get that down to 1/20th of the speed without disrupting it all, depending on your footage. Both of the cameras use H.264 and H.265 codecs for the really geeky people out there. Personally, I just use the H.265 codec. It's a slightly larger file size, but it is giving you better compression and a better image overall. Slightly less compatible maybe with some things, but any decent editing software won't argue between either of them. And of course they both shoot in RAW for photos as well, so you're going to have really good quality stills to work with out of the box. There are two physical differences between the two cameras, other than the fact the GoPro 9's larger. One is that the Hero 8, as you know, has got a fixed lens on it. It can't come off, can't be replaced or anything like that very easily without dismantling the whole thing and breaking the seals. The GoPro 9, however, this lens does twist off, and you can put a, I think it's a macro or wide angle lens or something on there as well, various things, and I'm sure there'll be lots of stuff comes out for this one. So that's a removable and replaceable front element. That's something that people wanted. GoPro responded and gave it to you. The other physical difference between these two is you've got this LCD screen which gives you your status and everything on the front of the Hero 8, and on the Hero 9 they've replaced that with this great big huge LCD screen which shows you what you're shooting. So if you're a vlogger or a content creator or somebody who does any sort of on the field media, and you're used to holding your GoPro out like this and going, hey, how are you guys, you know, let's get straight into it and all that sort of stuff, like I do, then that's going to be brilliant, because for the first time ever, unless you bought the display mod for this, which has only just come out roughly a month before the GoPro 9, then this finally means that you can see what you're shooting. Never been able to do that before with the GoPro. That's huge. Just remember though, look at the lens, not the screen. There you go. There's the two GoPros, the 8 and the 9. Which one are you going to buy? Smart Cookie will say get both of them. It's just, you've already got one, haven't you? If you don't already have one, if you're going to be vlogging with it, and chances are most people are, whether you intend to or not, you're going to want that front screen. You really are. If you're buying it because you want to stick it on a snowboard or something like that, or a go-kart or whatever, and you know you're not going to be vlogging with it, say it's you need another one as well as this, then grab these ones. You save yourself a couple of $100. If you're a real smart cookie, you'll go onto the GoPro website and buy one of these, and you'll get the subscription with it as well, GoPro subscription, and then suddenly you find that the subscription's free and it's cheaper. And if you want to, you can get an expansion pack with an extra battery and hand grip and a whole pile of neat stuff. It's cool. It's good stuff. The other thing is the GoPro 9 does come with a semi-hard case. This one doesn't. That one does. That doesn't. And that semi-hard case is actually really useful for carrying everything around and keeping it clean and not getting it knocked around a lot. Also with the subscription, I really strongly recommend getting the subscription at the moment, because you can basically get it for less than nothing by getting a rebate on the camera. Buying it with the subscription, the whole thing's cheaper than just buying the camera by itself. You'd be insane not to. But that also gives you a year's replacement, so you can break your camera twice and they'll just replace it for you. Go read the terms and conditions on the GoPro site. Don't listen to me, I'm not a lawyer. And the Hero 8 you can get a subscription on as well, of course. This one's going to be a bit cheaper. The price has dropped, which is great. This one you can get for a damn good price at the moment, which is great. Me, if I was buying my first GoPro, I'd get the 9. If I was buying an auxiliary GoPro and I didn't need to be looking at it, I'd get another 8. In fact, I would probably go out and find a second-hand 8 or something like that. Oh, one other thing, the media mod for the GoPro Hero 8 will not fit on the 9, obviously, because it's bigger. It physically won't fit at all. But the media mod for the 9 is the same price as the one for the 8, so you're not losing out. And if you've got both, you're going to want a separate one for each anyway, so you're not swapping them over all the time. You can use them both at the same time, that kind of thing. Hope this has been useful to you. If it has, hit down here and subscribe. Check out my gaming channel up here as well if you want to, or check it out even if you don't. Just check out my gaming channel. I need subs. Click this video and this video because they're awesome. And I will see you tomorrow. See you later.